Dawn, August 17, 1424. The plain outside Verneuil, in Normandy. The air is thick, not with fog, but with the scent of damp earth, sweat, and cold steel. 25,000 men stand in silent blocks, their breath pluming in the chill. They are not just soldiers. They are the shattered pieces of a broken kingdom, and the stubborn occupiers who claimed its crown. On one side, an English army, outnumbered, far from home, standing in the shadow of a dead king's dream. On the other, a coalition, French and Scottish, united by ancient oath and fresh desperation, sensing a moment to break a decade of defeat. This is not just a battle. It is a collision of nations, a test of systems, and a day that would be remembered by some as the Second Agincourt, and by others as the day hope died in a storm of arrows and mud. To understand the fury at Verneuil, we must step back into the chaos of the 100 Years' War. It was a conflict born of tangled bloodlines and burning ambition, the claim of England's Plantagenet kings to the throne of France. In 1415, the warrior King Henry V had seemingly turned that claim into reality. His stunning victory at Agincourt shattered French chivalry. By the Treaty of Troyes in 1420, he was named heir to the mentally ill King Charles VI, marrying Charles's daughter. England and France were to be united under one crown. But fate is brittle. In 1422, both Henry V and Charles VI died within months of each other. The crown passed to Henry's infant son, Henry VI. And in Paris, the Dauphin, Charles VII, the disinherited son of Charles VI, proclaimed himself the true king of France. The kingdom was cleft in two. The north, including Paris and Normandy, was controlled by the English regent, Henry V's capable brother, John, Duke of Bedford. The south, with its court at Bourges, was loyal to the Dauphin. France was not at war with England, it was at war with itself, and into this wound poured ancient allies. For centuries, Scotland and France had been bound by the Auld Alliance, a pact of mutual defense against their common enemy, England. For the Scots, war in France was a chance for glory, plunder, and to strike a blow at their perennial foe from foreign soil. In 1419, a Scottish army of thousands, under the command of the Earls of Douglas and Buchan, had landed. They were not mercenaries. They were a national expeditionary force, and they became the heart and core of the Dauphin's military hope. By 1424, the Duke of Bedford knew this coalition had to be broken. The stage was set. The prize was Normandy itself. Bedford marched from Paris with an army of roughly 9,000 men. It was a classic English system forged in the fires of Crécy and Agincourt. Its heart was the longbow, yeomen from the shires, armed with a 6-foot yew-bow that could punch through plate armor at 200 yards. They were protected by a backbone of dismounted men-at-arms, knights and nobles fighting on foot with sword, axe, and polearm. It was a disciplined, defensive hammer. Bedford marched from Paris with an army of roughly 9,000 men. It was a classic English system forged in the fires of Crécy and Agincourt. Its heart was the longbow, yeomen from the shires, armed with a 6-foot yew-bow that could punch through plate armor at 200 yards. They were protected by a backbone of dismounted men-at-arms, knights and nobles fighting on foot with sword, axe, and polearm. It was a disciplined, defensive hammer. As the armies deployed that morning, the contrast was stark. The English formed two compact, deep battles of men-at-arms, flanked by wedges of archers who hammered sharpened stakes into the ground before them, a portable fortress. The Allies formed two larger, more traditional divisions, the French and Italians on one wing, the Scots, the fierce heart of the army, on the other. The air crackled with the tension of impending violence. Douglas, it is said, looked across at the English lines and swore an oath. Today, he would either share the fate of the Scottish heroes of old, or he would add a greater glory to his name. The battle opened not with a general advance, but with a crisis in the English rear. Their baggage train, weakly guarded, was attacked by a French cavalry detachment. Panic spread. Their line of retreat, their supplies, everything was threatened. It was a moment crafted for collapse. But Bedford was a cool commander. He did not will his army. He sent a small reserve, held his position, and trusted his men to stand. It was a monumental gamble. His army now fought knowing their escape route was cut. They would win, or they would die. Then, the main assault began. The Italian mercenary cavalry, glittering in the morning sun, charged the English archers on one flank. It was a moment Agincourt had written in blood, the thunder of hooves against the hail of arrows. The English bowmen loosed volley after volley, a black cloud of death that thinned the Italian ranks. But these were professionals. They did not break. They veered around the stakes, smashed into the archers, and began to carve through them. On the other flank, the main French and Scottish cavalry under Douglas and the Constable launched their own, earth-shaking charge. And here, the Allies made their fatal, arrogant error. Elated by the Italian breakthrough and believing the English line was buckling, the main Allied cavalry did not turn to support the infantry. They did not regroup. They shattered through the English formation and kept going. They rode straight past the fighting, out the other side of the English army, and into the open countryside beyond. In their zeal for glory and pursuit, they had committed the ultimate tactical blunder. They had left their own infantry, the Scottish and French foot soldiers, completely alone and exposed. The battlefield now descended into brutal, intimate horror. The Scottish and French infantry, bereft of their cavalry, found themselves trapped between the unbroken English men-at-arms and the now reforming English archers on their flanks. It was a killing box. Bedford's disciplined blocks advanced. This was not the chivalric duel of knights on horseback. This was a slogging, shoving, hacking melee in the mud, the melee where discipline and cohesion decided who lived. The Scots, famed for their ferocity, fought with desperate courage. But they were surrounded. The English archers, having recovered, poured arrows into the flanks and rear of the Scottish schiltron. Men fell, creating gaps. The English men-at-arms, shoulder to shoulder, pressed in with axe and sword. It became a massacre. The Earl of Douglas fought like a lion, but he was cut down. The Constable of France was captured. The Italian cavalry, returning belatedly from their wild chase, found not a battle to win, but a slaughter to witness. Seeing the fate of the infantry, their morale shattered. They turned and fled the field. The retreat became a rout, and then a hunt. The English men-at-arms remounted horses and pursued the broken army for miles. The road back to Verneuil became a charnel path. The Scottish corps, the pride of their nation and the Dauphin's best hope, was annihilated. By day's end, the casualty figures were apocalyptic. The Allies lost over 7,000 men, perhaps half their army. The Scottish nobility was decimated. Both the Earls of Douglas and Buchan lay dead on the field. English losses were fewer than 2,000. Bedford had not just won a battle, he had exterminated an army. In the immediate wake, the victory at Verneuil was staggering. Bedford had secured Normandy for another generation. The Scottish military threat in France was broken forever. No major force would cross the sea again. The Dauphin, Charles VII, was plunged into despair, his cause appearing hopeless. The English position in France reached its zenith. John, Duke of Bedford, was the unrivaled master of the North. But history's tides are indifferent to single days of glory. Verneuil, for all its tactical perfection, was not a decisive strategic victory. It did not break the French will to resist. It did not capture the Dauphin. Instead, it solidified a terrible stalemate. The English now held vast territories but were perennially short of men and money to garrison them. The French cause, though bleeding, lived on in the person of a reluctant king in Bourges. And in this vacuum of despair, a new kind of force would arise. Not from the nobility, or from foreign allies, but from the soil of France itself. Just 5 years later, a peasant girl from Domremy would hear voices, lift a siege at Orleans, and crown a king at Reims. Joan of Arc's legend was built upon the very ruin left at Verneuil. She would channel the national identity that the battle had failed to crush. Bedford had won a masterpiece of medieval warfare, but he could not kill a nation's soul. So what endures from that distant August day? Not merely the tactics, the deadly marriage of longbow and dismounted men-at-arms. Not just the body count, though it was horrific. The deeper lesson of Verneuil is one of cohesion versus chaos. of the fragile glue that holds alliances together under the hammer of war. The English army, though smaller, was a unified instrument under a single, trusted commander. The Franco-Scottish force was a coalition, brave, powerful, but riven by different languages, motives, and notions of glory. Their fatal charge was not just a tactical mistake, it was a failure of unity. The knights sought personal renommee, the infantry needed their support. That disconnect doomed them. Verneuil stands as a stark monument to a brutal truth of medieval warfare. Discipline, of the kind hammered into the English over decades of war, could defy overwhelming numbers. But it also shows that even the most complete battlefield victory cannot alone resolve a war of nations. The plain at Verneuil absorbed the blood of thousands, and for a moment, the world tilted. But the earth, as it always does, remained. The wind still blows across that field today, whispering not of kings or treaties, but of the human choices made in a few hours of terror and fury, choices that echo far beyond the reach of any arrow or any crown.